Hey guys, sorry I can't make it to class today. I was gonna try to make it up to Fordham and help Sarah out with, today's topic, but unfortunately, something last minute caused me to not be able to attend. And so, in order to help out, I have decided to record, my little speech today on how to apply an analytical approach to content marketing and social search. Now, a little bit about myself. So, my name is Chris E, and if you hear the accent, it's because I'm international. And believe it or not, yes, E is actually my last name. So, a little bit about myself. When I first started off in the marketing industry, it was within the search engine optimization and search engine marketing space, right? So, that's a little bit more on the PPC side of things. Eventually, I joined a social media agency by the name of Big Fuel, where I worked on some fairly well known clients, including Samsung, T Mobile, and Gatorade, among others. Eventually, this led to where I am now, which is another agency called Renegade Marketing, where I am the lead analyst and I basically try to make sense of numbers, which we all hate, but I try to make sense of it to help plan our clients' campaigns and try to drive some sort of insight across the different channels of paid, owned, and earned media. So if you have any questions about this recording, or if you have any questions about marketing in general, please feel free to reach out to me at my contact details below. Now, I'm first going to talk about one of the key core tenets of content marketing. So we've all heard it before. Content is king, right? In the past few years, a lot of marketers have been talking about the importance of content marketing. They swear by it, they live by it. But the truth is, great content will not get any traction if nobody sees it. I mean, it's as if it doesn't even exist. So when I talk about distribution being queen, I'm really talking about the different channels of communication that we use as marketers, right? These can be social channels including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or it might even be, our email marketing channels where we have a list of 10,000 users that we email. At the end of the day, we're trying to merge and bring content and distribution together. Now, one thing that's very important to realize is that you should never jump in heads first, right? While a lot of people are talking about the need of content creation, it is very important to realize that a few things have to be put in place. Number one, you need a strategic plan. You cannot create content for the sake of creating content. You have to understand what kind of content you're going to be creating, and number two, what channels are you creating content for, right? So on Facebook, you might be able to create a post which has, one or two lines of copy and an image, but on Twitter, you can't have over 140 characters. So you have to think about what hashtags do I use, and then when you create content for Instagram, it has to be very visual. So you really have to understand, what kind of content you're going to create, what channels you're creating for, and how are we going to go about this, right? The second thing here is, content planning and creation takes up a lot of resources. Number one, you need someone to help plan it out. Number two, you have to think about, well, I need someone to write the copy. And on top of that, I need someone to create the images. Or maybe I need someone to go out and shoot the images. And then I need videographers to create those videos, and I need people to edit them. And then I need people to help plan about media, right? If I was going to buy ads, where am I going to buy them? Am I going to just do a YouTube pre-roll ad? A lot of things go on behind the scenes. In fact, this tends to shock a lot of people, but when I was working on Samsung, we actually had 70 people working behind the scenes just for social media alone. And if you think about it, that's mind-boggling because it doesn't even include creating the actual TV ads or putting up the billboards or things like that. None of it. This was just strictly social media, right? The third thing here is you have to invest in the long haul. Sometimes it might be even 2 or 3 months before you really see any impact on SEO or, hopefully trying to drive people to take the actions that you want. Because the truth is, you have to build trust. People have to be able to go to you and say, wow, this is actually content that I'm finding useful. So, think about it. If you're a brand and you only create content for 2 months and then you disappear, you're gonna make yourself look pretty bad, right? And the fourth thing, creating content such as blogs and articles isn't really for everyone. If you were a brand, and I'm going to use a lot of examples along the way, right? If you were perhaps a car brand, you want to create content that will help people decide, hey, why should you choose me over someone else? On the other hand, if you are a toilet paper like Charmin, I might not want to read a blog about which has the softest 2 or 3 ply, right? Let's face it. We don't want a relationship with our toilet paper. And in fact, you might just be better off doing coupons to get people to buy your stuff. So you really have to understand that not every content is suitable for every brand. So it's very important to ask, number one, what kind of business are you, right? Are you a toilet paper or are you a retailer? Or maybe even you're a publisher, right? Let's say you are, a Refinery 29 where you're all about lifestyle articles. That's a very different kind of business. And that leads to number two, right? What are your brand goals? At the end of the day, everyone is going to want more revenue and more sales. But sometimes content plays a very different role, right? Sometimes it's about education. So it's not so much about how much you get people to buy, it's more about how long does someone spend on the website, right? Maybe it's about how much traffic can I send to the website so that way I can charge my advertisers even more money. Maybe sometimes it is just as simple, hey, buy my stuff. The brand goal is always going to be a little bit different, right? The third thing, what role and impact will content strategy have in your funnel? So, like what we talked about earlier, there's a very big difference between trying to educate people. So, you're having people at the very top of your funnel, which are considering your brand, down towards when I'm closer to purchase, I need something to help me monetize. And the fourth thing, I cannot stress this enough. Do you have the necessary resources to actually manage and implement the strategy, right? Do you have enough people in house doing all the jobs that we just talked about earlier? Or do you want to hire an external agency? A lot of things have to go on behind the scenes before you can really implement a proper content strategy. So, one thing that I want to go into a little bit here is how to understand your target market, right? So, we're going to go and talk about the consumer decision journey. If you look at it nowadays, the consumer decision journey is really broken down to 4 parts, right? The first one is where the consumer will consider a set of initial brands that they like based on current perceptions. So let's use cars for an example. Maybe, I decide, hey, I want to buy a car. What cars do I know? I know a Honda, I know a Toyota, I know maybe Hyundai. And so I'm going to choose that as my initial brands that I'm going to research, right? Along the way, I'm going to find out, maybe I don't really want those brands, or maybe I want a bit more of a sports car, right? So if that's the case, I'm going to start thinking about, oh, what if I consider a Mazda, right? I'm going to add 1 or 2 brands, that I've started researching on, and I'm going to discount certain brands like the Honda because it's not something that I want. Then ultimately, once you narrow down exactly what you want, you're going to ultimately choose just one brand, right? And all this happens as you are Googling it. It happens as you are asking your friends about it or you're getting recommendations. And there's so much that goes on along steps 1 to 3 where you have the moment of purchase. And even when that's done, even once you buy the product, it doesn't really end. Nowadays with social media, once you buy it, you're gonna evaluate what you bought, right? You're gonna end up writing reviews. You're maybe gonna take pictures of it and you're gonna share it on social media. You're gonna consider what it's like after you bought a product. Let's say again with the car. How was the after sales service like, right? Was the maintenance service good or not? You're gonna take all these things into consideration, and if you like it, you're just gonna become loyal to that one brand. But if it sucked, you're gonna start again from scratch, right? And if you think about this approach, it can really be applied to every single business out there. And so when I think about search engine optimization and the kind of content I am trying to create, in general, people tend to do three kinds of searches, right? The first one is a broad based search where people are doing very general search, right? They're kind of looking at, different car brands, what do I want? And then you have the defined search where I decide I want a sports car. And then the exact search is where I say, hey, I want that Mazda, right? So you're looking at, taking so many different options where you have got, where you're trying to figure out what you want, and you are slowly cutting down as you start to discover what I want. And if you think about that, that not only can be applied towards what content you create, but you also have to understand, based on your business, you're trying to identify key opportunities that align with your brand's goals, right? If you are trying to create content for a broad-based search, you're going to look at, more generic topics. So you're looking at creating lists, you're looking at creating advertorials, you're looking at all these things like, hey, top 10 things you didn't know about buying a car, right? When you start going down to the defined search, you're looking at creating content topics which are more educational, right? What are different industry trends going out there right now? What are core features? Hey, will you help me review this car that I want, right? So you can see here that as you start to go down the funnel, there is more value to the content the lower down you go, right? And as you get down to exact search, these are really, things which are highly specialized that people only very occasionally search for. But if you give them exactly what you want, you're really helping to build that trust and you're bringing people that much closer towards actually buying something. So you always have to think about the longevity and the value of the content that you're creating based on this search, right? And this kind of looks like this on the consumer journey, right? You're looking at early stage exploration, impacting broad-based search, and then as you move further down, you're going to get more and more defined with the kind of content that you're creating. So you really have to understand where you're looking to invest in it, right? Again, not every kind of content is meant for every brand. Now, how do you go about it? So you really have to define the goal, right? The first thing that you really have to look at is the kind of KPIs that your boss is going to hold you against, right? It should really be complementary towards your business model. So think about it. Again, if you're a publisher, if you're a Refinery 29, your goal is to increase traffic to upsell media and partnership opportunities, right? You want to show people, hey, I have got 200,000 people a month coming into my website. You have to pay me X amount. And if more people come, I get to charge you more, right? Because more people see your ads. Maybe you are an affiliate engine where you try to refer qualified leads. What do I mean by this? So if you look at websites like maybe Expedia, right? Let's say we were planning your next trip for spring break. I'm gonna decide my destinations, and when I finally book it, I'm still booking a flight on Delta. I'm still booking a flight on American Airlines. Expedia essentially acts as a middleman, which is an affiliate engine, where they get money based on maybe a percentage of the ticket cost. So maybe what they want to look at is, how can I drive more clicks to actually purchase? You know, or maybe I'm trying to establish my brand as a thought leader, right? Or maybe I'm just trying to say, hey, of all the sports cars that I really, really want, why should I buy a Mazda instead of a Dodge? I want to create content that will make people look at it, read it, and spend more time on my site. Because the more time you spend on my site, the more educated you are about my products, and hopefully you're going to end up buying from me, right? Or maybe it's a simple case of I just want more people to see my stuff, right? So I'm going to start looking at the number of times my content is shared with people and the kind of impressions it gets out there. As you can see here, it's all very different. So you have to firmly understand what the goal is. Beyond that, you kind of have to do a little bit of research as to what people search about, right? So now I'm going to go into one of my favorite things, being retail. Um, this example is a little bit older. I mean, it's from last year, but this was taken from the Google Keyword Planner, right? So I was doing this project for Target, and we were trying to figure out, okay, um, if people were searching for something on Google, what are they searching for? And one thing that you notice is that a lot more people are actually searching for Christmas ideas for mom more so than dad, right? You have got an average of 1,600 people searching monthly versus 880 for dad. It's like nearly double of that. And if you try to keep it more gender neutral, like him or her, you can see the numbers there really drop. So this will help impact what kind of content you're going to be creating because it also impacts how you search, how you show up on Google, right? So ideally, you want to create content for the higher number of searches that there are out there because if more people search for it, more traffic to the website, the more likelihood you're going to buy something from me. Then I might also want to get about, trying to figure out if there's something a little bit more niche. Maybe I might want to figure out, hey, you know what? What about Christmas gifts for coffee lovers or photographers? You can see that these are very, very narrow. And, even though the average monthly searches here are just, 70 or 10, keep in mind that when it comes to SEO, this only takes into consideration, a very specific phrase for Christmas gifts for coffee lovers. Um, the volume can be very different if you were to do Christmas ideas for coffee lovers. You kind of have to go in there and test a little bit of the nuances. But this is really just highlighting to show you that you have to do your research and figure out where are people and how can you really plan for this kind of content. The next thing you need to look at is to figure out when people are actually searching. I wanted to figure out here, gifts for him, gifts for her, gifts for mom, and gifts for dad. And I used Google Trends to try to see and try to get a better gauge as to when people were searching for stuff. You can see here that, this being October 2013 and this being January, this is Christmas. And you can see the amount of times how much more people are searching gifts for mom more than anything else. But funny enough, when it came to about February, guess what? More people were searching about gifts to buy their boyfriend for him more than they were looking at for their girlfriend. The trends always change over time because, different people are going to search for different things at different times of the year. You look at it here, this is, guess what? Going to be Mother's Day. You look at it here, it's going to be Father's Day. So sometimes you just have to understand when people are searching because that really impacts, when you have to create content, right? You have to consider if December is here, you can see how the spikes occur maybe a week or two before Christmas as people are doing their shopping. So if you're going to try to take advantage of this of this smaller slope over here, you kind of have to plan nearly 1 month or 2 months in advance to create relevant content. And you can see this will be a pattern that will just repeat itself time and time again. So you have to think about, how much time do I have to create it, and then when should I publish it, right? And once you have planned your content and what you're going to be creating, you have to really look around what anchor keywords are important for your brand to own, right? If you look at SEO, a lot of people say, I just want to get as many keywords as I can, right? Just for the sake of SEO. But the truth is, if you want to be found for something like Christmas gifts for mom, it still has to make sense, right? You aren't gonna, you kind of need to figure out what your niche is, and then you decide, hey, I want to create a post talking about 10 great Christmas gifts for your fashionable mom. So this way, I'm hitting on Christmas gifts, and I'm hitting on mom, but I'm also hitting on the fashion savvy people, right? So the more tailored I make it, the higher likelihood people are going to click through. But going on that, you really have to make sure that the copy that you use is going to be, you know, utilized across all channels consistently, right? And you have to figure out, okay, if I'm going to create a post for 10 great Christmas gifts for your fashionable mom, my post on Facebook is going to look way different than my tweet that's going to push it out. So the key benefit of this is, the more it makes sense, the more people are going to click through, the more people are going to read it, and hopefully the more people are going to link back towards your site, which will continue to drive traffic. It's a loop. It's a loop that you have to keep on building. And, while this seems simple in theory, think about the fact that this is just one example. And think about the fact that throughout the year, you have easily 150, maybe 200 of these going on again and again and again. You need a whole team to staff up for an execution like this, right? The next thing you need to look at after you have aligned the kind of content you're creating is the overall user experience, right? So you have to think about what you're trying to get your target users to do and how to go about it, right? So let's say, initially I want to drive traffic to my content page. So I'm going to use social media. I'm going to use, advertising, banner ads. I'm going to use emails, right? Then the next step is a user is going to read the article, and they're going to click through, right? If they like it enough, they're going to go to my website. They're going to add it to my shopping cart. And ideally, I want someone to actually buy something, right? And this can be incentivized by coupons and different offers, right? And I can only tell you the number of times where I have been a sucker whenever I've seen a 30% off coupon. So this works. And if you think about it again, there is always a logical step for everything in between. So plan very carefully about that overall user experience and user flow and see if there's anything you can do about it. And once you get that, you have to refine it based on the results that you're getting, right? Are you happy with the results? What's working for you and what's not? And, as you go in and fix different things, you have to basically, based off on analytics, decide what's working and what's not, right? You need to understand what kind of content are people clicking through, right? There's no such thing as the best or the worst kind of content because every brand is different and people respond differently to different kinds of copy, right? So you should say something along the lines of, okay, in my past 10 posts, I have had 500 people on average click on it. If I have a good post, it'll be 800. If I have a bad post where I know it's horrible, it'll be 200. You really have to start benchmarking and keeping an average of things, right? Then you also need to look at where are they coming from. So this is where you can use different tracking links to figure out, and you can look at these on Google Analytics Are they coming from my email? Are they coming from my ad? Like, where exactly are they coming from? Is it because someone else blogged about it? You can figure a lot of this out based on Google Analytics, right? And then beyond that, you also need to determine where people are dropping off, right? So you have people who are sharing and clicking from the source that you shared it to, right? And people come to the article, they click towards the e-commerce site, they add it to cart, and they check out. Between all these different stages, people can fall out at any one time, right? So let's say that I've had 500 people click on my tweet, and if they come to my article, you know, what if only 200 of them click to my e-commerce site? Why is that? Is it because it was not compelling enough? Was it because maybe people thought it was just another article, right? You have to kind of use the numbers to guide your decision on that, right? And then from that, out of the 200 people who come to my website, let's say there's 100 of them, and let's say 100 of these people start shopping around my website, and only 30 people end up putting something into their shopping cart. What happens to those other 70, right? Is it just that you don't have the right products that they're looking for? And then from those 30 that add the product to the shopping cart, what if only 2 people check out? What the hell happened to the other 28? Right? So as you understand where people are landing at on the user flow, you can decide, oh, maybe we need to have less fluff in our articles. Maybe we need to provide people a coupon so they actually buy stuff. Numbers never lie. And once you take those insights, you can implement these changes and you can test and test again. So, from all that we have discussed earlier, it really comes down towards 3 core things, right? Number one, you have to define your goal, right? You have to define your goal based off on the organizational business model. What makes sense, what doesn't make sense. You need to understand who your customers are, what they really like about your brand, where they're finding you, when they're buying from you, and why they're buying from you, or why are they not buying from you, right? The numbers don't lie. The second thing you need to do is to really help align your overall approach. You have to understand the different kinds of content that you produce and figure out where it plays into the decision journey, right? And then beyond that, you also have to make sure that the copy is consistent across all the different communication channels. And finally, you have to refine it, right? You have to never stop testing, because I can't stress this enough, numbers don't lie. If your boss is going to say, hey, show me the ROI, this is what analytics is for, right? And then you implement those changes. There was a great quote by Jim Collins that says, shoot bullets before cannonballs. Because once you get the right trajectory and once you figure out if you're hitting your target, you can really start to invest a lot more money into it because you have the numbers to show that something works, right? I think, at the end of the day, with content marketing, right? And, if you think about the fact that people have very short attention spans, you have the ability to test many different things, and sometimes without people even realizing that they're being exposed to different things. So you have a lot of opportunity to use analytics to optimize your campaigns and your programs. And yep, that's it. So again, I'm sorry I couldn't make it in today, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, or ask Sarah. I'm sure she has been a fantastic resource for you guys, and hopefully everyone got to take something away from this. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it.